Hey Outlaws, and welcome back to the next episode of my Red Dead Redemption 2 playthrough. Today is going to be a continuation of the last one in terms of going through the gang members, but I'm going to be doing other things while I talk, so hopefully my voice holds out because I'm sure it'll be a lot of talking again. Thank you so much to everybody who commented about the prediction doll or the fortune telling doll near Beach's Hope. I am very excited to go and punch that doll and get some predictions, so I think I'll do that first. I've got a few things that I might want to do today, but yeah, I'll talk as I go. So let's go punch a doll. Okay, let's go. Right, it was here. Right, roll up my sleeves. How do I punch?
I am Madame Irene. Come close and bathe in my wisdom. You will come to a crossroads, and before you make a decision, eat. You have mistaken clarity for veracity. A meal would serve you better than any sermon.
I don't know why this didn't trigger before, but Madame Irene, is she the lady online? On Red Dead Online? She's one of the... Oh, I don't know what you call it, but like the professions. Is that Madame Irene? And she does the collectibles? Or am I thinking of a different Madame? So when I get to Crossroads, eat. Got it.
I am consulting the clouds for your fortune. Yes, here it is. Craving and famine may season the mind, but you would be wise to indulge in a supper, for you will soon lie down and wallow in famishment, which is a terrible way to court a wife.
True. She seems very food orientated so far.
I have been waiting for you. Listen, as Madame Irene is an endless fountain of wisdom, as long as you have the silver. While you have teeth that bear wisdom, they will only need to be extracted under sedation.
Wisdom teeth?
I am tired and cannot fathom reaching into the deep recesses of my psychic wisdom. Please, come back another time.
She gets tired? Maybe you should have had supper. I guess she's all out of predictions. Now it just looks like I'm being a jerk. Oh cool, well that saved me a few cents. Okay. Something about having wisdom teeth, eat lots of food, be good to the wife. That's what I got from that. Oh. Oh no. Not them snakes again. Danger noodles. Right, let's have a look. Let's go down to New Austin. So I obviously did a lot of this last time. I think I went down here and then kind of up towards Tumbleweed. There was a lot of places I didn't go. I did a lot of these. I was mostly going for like the buildings though. I've not just scoured. So I'll probably carry on clearing up some of these like faded paths, and then I don't know, maybe then just go for like a meander into the wilderness. Also I'd really like dug into Armadillo, but Tumbleweed I only went at night and I didn't really properly explore, so I'd like to probably go back to Tumbleweed and just see what's up. Doesn't look like they have a bounty poster, and I'm pretty sure Armadillo won't, because you know they've got bigger fish to fry, bigger things going on. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do any bounties down there. But yeah, I'll just mosey. We'll just do a bit of exploring while I talk and see what happens. Okay, so last time I was going through my least favourite to my most favourite, I did quite a few on the list, and I stopped just before we got to Dutch because I knew Dutch was going to be quite a talking point. So we'll start with Dutch this time. He is my 18th favourite character, so he was quite far down on the list, especially considering he is one of the sort of biggest, most forefronted characters of the game. So I think if we go back to the start, he was clearly quite mentally or emotionally unstable from the very beginning. He had mood swings. He was clearly quite... He showed some signs of like paranoia and trust issues at the very beginning. I remember he was reading his book. This is back in Horseshoe Overlook, so right near the beginning. He was reading his book and outside of his tent, and I went up and spoke to him. And then I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like, you know, you're going to betray me at some point, I know it, or just out of the blue. You know, he had days where he was like, we're going to do great, keep faith, you know, I've got a vision. And then other days where he seemed really stressed and low and yeah, like down in the dumps. But that time, like, he really showed some kind of, like, to Arthur of all people, he showed some sort of level of mistrust. So I think the foundation...
They stole this land. We can steal the fruits of it. Come on. Let's kill this vaquero.
Oh, thought they were leaving then.
This really ain't like it.
My gun needs cleaning. Oh no, not too bad. Okay. Yeah, that told ya. Oh, they interrupted me. How rude. I was halfway through a sentence and I forgot what I was saying. Oh. What's going on over there? Oh, there's a church. I had a little marker here. What's going on?
Hey, whoa! Keep your distance, friend. These bodies ain't safe to be around.
Oh, Lord, you're heavy. Oh.
What's wrong with them? Aside from being dead.
You ain't heard about the cholera plague in Armadillo? Most of the towns either died or up and left.
So, why are you burning them?
It's what the townfolk want. Trying to stop the spread. Terrible business. But lucrative, I have to say.
So what about him? What if he catches it? Oh, that's a lot of dead people. Have you got it as well, or are you immune, or are you just a risk taker? You a gambling man? Good job. Oh, that's cool. Wow, he really did burn them. Were they like covered in something flammable? Probably shouldn't breathe in the fumes. It's okay, Rachel, you don't have to go close. I know you don't like fire. Smart girl. So cute, she keeps trying to come back to me and then getting spooked and running away. Oh, Rachel. So am I near Armadillo? This church feels kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Go on, girl.
It's okay, you can go. Hey, Jenga. Oh, John Doe. I didn't know who that was. Or he was actually called John Doe, which is unfortunate. Wait, does that just say Cowboy? Let me have a look at this. What is this? Cowboy of no name. Is this like the... Because this really is in the middle of nowhere. I don't think we're close to the town. So we've got John Doe, Cowboy of no name. Oh, is that McFarlane? Owers McFarlane. Okay, so it's not just a anonymous graveyard. That's a cool way to spell bird. Josephine Bird. Or is it Byard? Jackson Greenwood. Gone fishing. Oh. One's too old and worn. They just got across, so did they. I find little details like this really interesting for some reason. Calvin Draper. Loving father, terrible lawman. Hank McFarlane. I don't think we're very far from McFarlane's ranch. Oh, we are quite far. Wow, they had to take those people ages. I guess it's a little bit closer than Blackwater. Yeah, we are out the way of Armadillo. Maybe this is, I don't know if this is like the closest place they can bury people. Rosie Tennyson. Gone but not forgotten. And more without names. Judith Johnston. So only 23 years old. She was so young. Francis Moon, now that's a cool name. That's a book character name. Brother of Herbert Moon. Always took a joke too far. Oh, it doesn't look like you got the last laugh, buddy. Theodore Kilbane, also a great character name. That's somebody. He came in search of fortune and is still looking. Aww. I think that's all of them. What a strange place. It's like a garden of the dead in the middle of the desert. There's all these like cool ruined buildings around it as well. Oh dear. No. No. Don't. Just don't. Rachel, save me. What's your problem? Why are you faster than me? That's not fair. Yeah, can't get me up here, can you? Thank you, Rachel. Boars are dangerous. Don't you laugh at me for running away. Last time I got taken out by a goat, this time I almost get taken out by a boar. I guess there were some buildings nearby then. This is a weird setup though. Let's have a look at that one. Oh, maybe if I just fire my gun nearby it will scare it off. Oh, Rachel's with me. It's okay. Thank you, my love. Keeping me safe. Hello, Jenga. Oh, you moved my mic. Please. I don't know why. I'm surrounded by animals. I fed you. What more do you want? What do you want from me? I've got Spice on my lap. I've got Jenga here off camera. I've got Yuki here staring at me. What is it? What is it? What do you want? Do you want scratches on the head? Do you want scratches on the head? You're gonna have to show me. You are. I've got more friends than you. I've got more friends than just you three, you know. Go on, get out of here. Get. I don't think there's anything really going on here. It's just for the abandoned vibes.
Good girl. Let's go.
Anyway, what was I saying? I was talking about Dutch, and then the Del Lobos showed up, and then I found a cool church. So yeah, it clearly wasn't the events of the story and what happened that set Dutch off into that trajectory. Like, he clearly already had the foundations of a bit of instability and paranoia and stuff there, I think. Why did someone throw away a perfectly good boot? There's no need for that. How random. There's only one as well. If I see someone walking around with one bare foot, I'll know. So we know that Hosea, I believe, was the first one that Dutch met. It sounded like it started off with just the two of them. Ooh, do I know about that? Have I been there before? I don't believe I have. Let's go. I don't know at what point everybody joined, but I'm pretty sure it was Dutch and Hosea, then I think Arthur, and then John as well, and then Mrs. Grimshaw? I don't know if... Oh gosh, is that a person's body? Suspect corpse. What's with their face? Is that an animal skull? I'll know when John draws it, like picture image. I can clearly now see what it is. What was this poor thing? Who would do such a thing to any creature? Wait. Is that a tailbone? Donkey lady. I was gonna say, it's clearly like a woman with like, they've put an animal skull on. But that looks like a genuine tailbone. So, and she's called Donkey Lady. Maybe she was born with like a really unique condition and... Wait! I've seen this before. They, oh, they have this in Rhodes? No, it's not this contraption, but they have a contraption in Rhodes, and they've got the donkeys pulling it round in circles as like a animal of labour. That's so cruel. Do you think because she had features that resembled a donkey, as in a long face and we can only assume a tail, that they made her work like a pack mule or a donkey? What a bunch of jerks. That is so mean. I wonder if she died from doing the work and they just left her there? Or maybe she died during... I wonder if this place was like attacked or... Doesn't quite look burnt, but maybe she died because she's all like tied up and couldn't get away or defend herself. So yeah, I think it started off with just those 5 people. And they're definitely the ones who, as far as I've seen, I feel like Dutch genuinely really cared about. They were like his inner circle, like the OGs, you know. I feel like they're the people that he really looked out for, listened to, I know he was always a little bit untrusting or paranoid at times, but I feel like those are the ones who he trusted the most. And, you know, questioned the least in terms of loyalty and sticking with him and not betraying him. Ooh, yes please. A coin cup. In a small jewellery bag. Oh, there's a grave. Just one? And clearly not hers. So was this owned by one person? Or I wonder if one person died with whatever happened here and the rest of them made it out. It might not have been an attack or anything. They could have just fallen on tough times, got sick, run out of money. Oh my gosh. How did she get free? I didn't do that. It's just got more eerie. I feel like I need to check this out now. Hold on a minute. The bone-chilling legend of the Donkey Lady offers that a half-woman, half-donkey-like creature continues to haunt the concentrated woods amid the Medina and San Antonio rivers just south of Alamo City. The Donkey Lady Bridge, San Antonio's terrifying folktale. So it sounds like it's based on a real folktale, but isn't confirmed to necessarily be true. But in Red Dead 2, she's real. I would say she's here in the flesh. She's here in the bone. Oh, I need to eat. I'm not listening to the fortune teller lady. I wasn't at Crossroads. But I should eat before the famine. Oh, it drew her. 2 crows. That's a cool name. Ooh.
Easy now.
Another lockbox. I can't tell if that's just that guy shooting again. Yeah, okay. Never mind, I'll leave him. So yeah, obviously started off with just the 2 of them. And then they picked Arthur up when he was, I want to say 12, 14, something like that. And then at some point, Mrs. Grimshaw and John. And I think that was like the family that like Dutch had. Over time, of course, they've picked up quite a lot of people. I don't know when every person joined, but it obviously became like a refuge for people on the run who didn't fit in with the law. You know, wanted safety in numbers. Hello, Jenga. We're being awfully clingy today, aren't we? Nope. He said about how he thought of them all as family, and you know, they were all like family to him. He'd die for any of them and stuff. I feel like with Arthur, Hosea, John, Mrs. Grimshaw, that was true. I don't think it was true. I don't see him like laying down his life to save Pearson, or Strauss, or anyone like that. I think he loved the role of playing the hailed leader. He loved being on the top, you know, in the spotlight. The popularity, the praise. I think he liked the power of it all, like being the leader, the responsibility. I think it was a role that, yeah, he was quite fond of. Yes, please. I think, you know, power does draw people in, and he obviously ended up with quite a lot of people.
You took a wrong turn.
Hello?
Let's give this traveler some direction.
Damn
Run
it.
him down.
Oh,
You'll die today, boy. thinking gringo who thinks the world
What's a gringo?
belongs to him. You should know that, man. Today you die in a shallow grave.
Is that another? Well, they just came out of nowhere. See, I think the more people he had under him, the more power he had, the more responsibility he had. I think I said quite early on about how I felt he was putting on a bit of a brave face, and I think he did kind of enjoy his position as the leader, but I also feel like he was struggling with the responsibility, you know, with the weight of the people who had died, trying to keep everybody's faith and favour and find a way out of what was becoming a very difficult and then eventually a very impossible situation. He did have people like Hosea there, who were there to sort of support him, provide counsel, offer up ideas, so he wasn't kind of shouldering the burden alone. But it did ultimately rely on him. Everyone's looking to him, everyone else in the gang. They're like, what are we going to do, Dutch? You know, what's the plan, Dutch? And he's trying to keep everybody's morale high while struggling sometimes with his own morale. We never got to see Dutch before the Blackwater incident. So in a way, we never got to see Dutch without the strain and without the pressure. So it's hard to say if he was always a bit like that or if it was just that when things started to go wrong, because we weren't there at the start of things going wrong. But we definitely saw as the story progressed and things started to get progressively worse, we definitely saw him become more and more irate, reckless, as like the pressure built up. I think Dutch was somebody who had really big ideas and ambitions. You know, most people kind of cap themselves with what they think is achievable. Dutch thought about what he wanted, what he could aim for, and I think he felt that if he believed and kept faith and took risks, that he could get there. I guess he was basically an entrepreneur, you know. You take risks, you believe, you try your hardest, and you can make it to heights that no one else even conceived would be possible. But you really need to believe in yourself and your vision to get there. And I think that's the kind of person Dutch was. Obviously, as we saw in the later game, that doesn't always work out well. That can end very badly. But I think Dutch's ambition and sort of high-reaching visions were perfectly tempered by Hosea's logic and wisdom. He was kind of like the anti-Dutch. Dutch would always think, I want to get here, and Hosea would come in with, yeah, but here's the situation and here's what we can actually do right now. And Dutch would be thinking about the future and what was possible, and Hosea would be thinking about the present and what was realistically achievable. And together, I think that was a perfect combination of Dutch planning ahead and like deciding what they're aiming for, and then Hosea figuring out a realistic, achievable route of how to get there. Let's go over to Jorb's Bap, as I thought it was called. Good times. I think there were a couple of moments where in the story that were like key moments for Dutch's spiral. We heard Javier and Arthur talking, at the beginning in the Grizzlies that Dutch had killed a woman, I believe it was, and Arthur seemed really concerned. Bearing in mind Arthur had known Dutch for like 20 years. You know, he knew Dutch really well. He knew sort of Dutch's moral code, he knew Dutch's behaviour and decision making, and Arthur seemed really concerned and troubled that Dutch would shoot an innocent person. He said that's really not like Dutch. So that was like the first, even though we weren't there to see it, that was the first time I'd say that we saw Dutch act out of character. And showing some, like, a change in behaviour. Oh. This is even more random than that church. Why is it making that sound? Is it just me, or does this not feel like the normal music of the game? Hoover, your name's Hoover. Hoover Cowan. Here lies my third husband. Fourth time lucky. Why would you write that on his grave though? Brutal. That is absolutely savage. Nothing. Drummond. Sergeant Joseph Drummond, a brave soldier called to a higher service. Aww. Leela Shelton, struck by lightning. Oh, that's unlucky. Edgar Shelton, struck by lightning. They got struck by lightning together? Leela and Edgar Shelton. Eves. She lived every day as if it were her last. Especially this one. These are brilliant. Oh, Matilda Eves and Charlotte Eves, I see. Departed this life. Her memory is cherished. I'm sorry, but Charlotte's is funnier. Where am I? Is this just so in the middle of nowhere? Oddfellows Rest. It's like in between Armadillo and Tumbleweed. It's so remote. I think the trolley mission is one. We know that Dutch hid his head, and all throughout the story people have been, you know, punched, shot, all sorts, and they never really made much of a thing about it unless it was potentially fatal. They made a big deal about, or a bigger deal about Dutch hanging his head, like they actually mentioned it and stuff during the mission. But he was fine. He, you know, it wasn't fatal or anything.
Whoa now.
Oh dear. Poor coyote.
Hello, girl.
It didn't register at all at the time, but since you guys mentioned it in the comments and absolutely blew my mind, you have a really good point. you've said, and I've known people as well, or known of people, who have sustained bad head injuries, and it has impacted their personality or mood or perspective since, like how they behave. I mean, Dutch seemed fine afterwards, but I do wonder if it impacted or like damaged the part of his brain perhaps that affects his decision making and his judgment, because after that it's difficult because there's so much going on in such a short space of time, but I do wonder if maybe that is why he became more reckless and morally as well. Again, going back to Blackwater, it was so unlike him apparently to kill a civilian, but then we saw on Guarma and stuff, like he just killed that old lady. He didn't have to. There was no reason, you know, it wasn't a life or death situation, but his moral compass just seemed to change, and I don't know if it was from the trolley mission or not. Obviously Hosea dying was another really big moment for him. Again, Hosea kept him in check and balanced him, and without that balance I think Dutch became a bit unhinged, and there was nothing to counter there was nothing to counter his chaos anymore. You know, he still had all these big ideas and these risks he wanted to take, but there was now no longer anyone adding a realistic perspective and pace to them. And as we saw a lot of the time, that didn't end well. Hosea could have stopped a lot of that from happening if he was still around. So I think as the story progressed, I think part of how he became was due to the events of the story, Micah's manipulation and gaslighting and sort of toxic manipulation, possibly the head injury as well. I do think though that some of it might have been his true colours. Who are you? Are they Del Lobos? In terms of sacrificing the other gang members who he had less of like a bond with, I do wonder sometimes if that part was genuine. I don't think the original Dutch would have sacrificed their lives, because again, apparently Dutch wasn't somebody who would take or endanger innocent lives. It's generally the rich and the corrupt and stuff that they would go after. I think even the original Dutch, I don't think he would have shown the same amount of support and loyalty to like Karen or Rev or somebody as he would have done to Arthur or John. I think he would have, the original Dutch, I feel like he would have sacrificed himself to save Arthur, to save John, to save Mrs. Grimshaw and Hosea. For the others, I'm not so sure. In my opinion, and again this is just subjective, I think most of how he was in the end game was from the events that unfolded and the influences that came in during the game. I think a bit of it though was probably him dropping the facade of the, I'd sacrifice myself for any of you and stuff to the other gang members. I think the gang was a shield he could hide behind. He was a wanted man, but they could go into town for him and, get supplies. They could get him money and he could stay tucked away when he needed to. I think they were a useful asset to him, but I don't know how much he kind of genuinely would have stood in the line of fire to save them, Speaking of standing in the line of fire, I should probably am going to shoot them, but let's see who they are first. Oh, you're a Del Lobo.
What do you want?
Well, here we go then.
Get out of here!
safe. They could be climbing up behind me, so I need to be aware of that. I think Mrs. Grimshaw's death, I think it was more subtle.
What a mess. Nasty business.
Bad business. And Miss Arthur. I think it was a little less obvious, but I think Mrs. Grimshaw was actually a bit of a moment as well. When Arthur was standing up against Micah in Beaver Hollow, Dutch was kind of keeping quite impartial. You know, he was sitting back and he was just like watching us both and seeing how it unfolded. You know, he was leaving it between Micah and Arthur, and up to that point hadn't really taken too much action until Mrs. Grimshaw got shot, until Micah shot her, and then he pulled out his guns and was like, right. So I think it was quite subtle. You know, you never got to see his like absolute initial reaction or expression to when she was shot, but that was what seemed to make him step up, or at least that was the moment that he stepped up. It's hard to tell, but I do think that affected him more than the other deaths, like Shaun, especially Kieran. He didn't seem too fussed about Kieran. He was like, oh, poor boy. Anyway, I've got a great job we can do. I feel like Mrs. Grimshaw's death kind of pushed him into taking action. And then Arthur's death, I think, was the moment where it's like the fog cleared almost, and he kind of gained realization and clarity over his situation. Right, everyone needs to calm down. What's all this fuss about? It's alright. Yeah, I feel like that was the moment where, like how Hosea always saw their actual situation and the sort of realistic present perspective of everything, and Dutch was always the dreamer. You know, he was always looking ahead and seeing where they could be and what they were aiming for. I think Arthur's death, and you know, when he was dying, I think that was like when Dutch suddenly snapped into reality in the present moment and saw, for the first time, really saw the situation and yeah, like what was going on around him, where he actually was and what was actually happening, and not what could happen and what he was aiming for. You know, he saw the actual mess that had been done to the gang and realised sort of his role in it. I know he wasn't totally to blame. I don't know if he saw it that way or not, but I think reality just came crashing down on him like 1,000 tons. You know, he finally lost his faith. You know, he gave up on dreaming. He gave up on his visions and just realised sort of the damage that he had done to get them there. I don't obviously know what happened in the days that followed that. I think that, I imagine he probably didn't sleep great, was probably very troubled. Again, perhaps not for the rest of the gang, but definitely for those close few who he did care about. And maybe he couldn't move on from it while he knew Micah was still around. He must have known Micah had, you know, as big a part to play in it, sort of played him for a fool and used him as like a tool for Micah to get what he wanted. So I think he wanted to tie up loose ends, you know, just so he could totally sever the past off. It was probably haunting him a lot more with Micah still alive out there somewhere, after everything he did to Dutch and the gang. So I think it was probably like revenge for the gang, revenge for himself, and what was done to him. And then maybe just to put it as right as he could, but you know, he knew he could never undo what happened. And I think he was just too far gone by that point, you know, from the guilt and the betrayal, especially given how sensitive he was to the thought of being betrayed. That probably just reaffirmed all of his, like, biggest paranoia. So I think he couldn't go back to his old self. He didn't have the willpower, or the clear conscience to do it, so, you know, he tied up loose ends and then I guess just was a shell of his old self by then. There's so much to Dutch that isn't obvious and really is just down to speculation. You know, it's so subjective, we can't know for certain what was going on in his head, what his intentions were and how he felt about everybody, how aware he was about what was happening. But I kind of like that because it leaves it open to debate. And as I've already seen, kind of some of the things that I've said, some of you agree with, some of you have other views on it. It's really good that they've left it so unclear and open. But he's a fascinating character. But there was definitely, unarguably, so much going on with Dutch. From the very beginning to the very end. There's an empty bed. Don't see a body on the floor, that's good. What a lovely house. Why does nobody lock their doors? They had keys back in this time. Oh, they like nature and stuff. It's my kind of person. Got some trees, got a nice mountain. What's this over here? Trees and a mountain. Ooh, I want to read that. Don't think I can. It's in the chest. Share. How interesting. Is this like a geocache? Is it like I take something and I leave something else? A shoe. We're finding a lot of one item of footwear today. Some bourbons, some money, a shirt, a handkerchief, a neck curtain, blank bit paper and a newspaper. Interesting. I won't take anything though. Don't know what's going on with that chest. But it seems like a very nice and tidy home. And I'm sure someone lives here. Don't know where they are though. God, fancy that. Imagine, can I sit down? Don't think I can sit down. Imagine just sitting here, having your cup of tea or cup of coffee, and look at this view. Not even any neighbours to bother you. Bliss. Next on my list is Abigail. She was an interesting one. So she was running with a group of outlaws, and we know that she was a thief. However, she didn't seem to want to be with a group of outlaws and wanted to live a normal sort of law-abiding life with a normal family, which kind of begs the question of why she was there in the first place. I don't know, I don't remember how she became part of the gang. Like what happened to, like why she started stealing, whether it was a choice she made or if it was sort of circumstance forced it. My guess would be, I mean, I don't know how old she was, but you know, I would guess she was in her 20s, early 30s. It's really difficult for me to judge ages on this game. I thought Arthur was like in his 40s or 50s, so who knows. But my thought would be, for whatever reason she started stealing, I imagine she was probably like in her teens, would be my guess. And maybe, you know, joining a band of outlaws back then, you know, she was younger, less experienced, probably less responsible, probably felt a little more, you know, like we all feel a bit invincible as teenagers. Must be near Armadillo, we've got a sandstorm on the go. Yeah, maybe she got swept up in like the adventure and the thrill of life on the road and sleeping under the stars and the freedom of it all. Or maybe she, you know, I don't know what came first, John or the gang. Maybe she fell in love with John and joined the gang to be with him. Or maybe she joined the gang and then met John and then they got together. I feel like what could have been the big change for her, from, you know, wanting to be in the gang or ending up with them, to, you know, I don't know if she wanted to leave the gang. I think she was staying for John, but she clearly didn't want that lifestyle anymore. I think it was having Jack. I think motherhood maybe brought that out in her. You know, she had Jack, suddenly she had another human being to be responsible for. I feel like maybe that's when she shifted from wanting to be part of this band of outlaws to wanting to leave and live a normal life. You know, she was thinking about Jack's future quite a lot. You know, she don't think she wanted this life for him. She didn't want him having the influence of thieves and pickpockets and conmen, you know, raising him. A life that was so dangerous. You know, they were always on the run, being hunted. I think even before Blackwater, they were probably wanted. And I don't think she... Oh, Jesus Christ. Blemmin' snakes! That scared me. Give me my hat back. Priorities. Don't you start rattling more at me. Yeah, I think she wanted Jack to grow up, as you know, as a normal boy, to not have the dangerous life. Like maybe it was a gamble and a risk she was willing to take and John was willing to take, but she didn't want to force that lifestyle upon Jack. You know, like any good parent wants the best for their kid and wants their kid to be safe, and to live a sort of unburdened life. And I think she saw that she couldn't really be doing that by raising Jack in a band of outlaws on the run, obviously. Oh my goodness, look at that. How beautiful. We obviously saw a lot of conflict between her and John, obviously. I think, again, maybe when she was younger and more carefree and less sort of tied down with responsibility. There's a blue thing down there. I feel like maybe, you know, John was this like handsome, roguish outlaw. Is this another flying contraption? What does that say on the end? Found a flying machine. Needless to say, it had crashed. Charles Kinnear. Or Kinnear. The other one had like a seat on it, I think, didn't it? This one doesn't seem to. It looks like it was a flying by itself kind of thing. Unless there were like handlebars or something. I assume it was from the same person, so I guess they've flown it off of the top of there. How interesting.
You okay, girl? Let's go.
See, I wonder if before it was, yeah, like, you know, when she was young and wild and free and,
Hey,
John was like
I'm
this,
proud of you.
dare I say, bad boy. And she might have been drawn to him for that, without really thinking about like their future or anything. She might have just liked the whole like someone who's a bit like bad and edgy and living outside of the law and exciting and stuff. But then when Jack came along, it kind of changed her priorities. She did genuinely love John. While he was probably fine as a, you know, a love interest when it was just the two of them, that didn't necessarily mean he was going to be a great father or would want to be a father.
Whoa, easy.
You know, I don't think she'd been looking for a family man. I think she'd been looking for... She just, you know, she found John attractive. And then obviously when she had Jack, she wanted a more normal life, and that doesn't really suit John. You know, what he wants in life. I'll get into John later, but he obviously did sacrifice a lot to give her that lifestyle, even though it went against the grain of like who he was. So yeah, I think she was always torn between her love for John, her love for John and
For your own good, girl.
the life she so badly wanted for Jack. I feel like she felt like she couldn't compromise on either, but it was so almost impossible to have both. So yeah, I feel like obviously eventually it worked out. I'm not saying I don't kill people as John. I kill a lot of people. But yeah, I feel like that's the sort of battle Abigail was fighting the whole time. The life she wanted for her family, but not being willing to give up John either. And so she stayed with the gang, and then when they eventually left, she struggled a lot with John, trying to sort of get him to follow her vision, and trying to get him to sort of follow her dream, and become the man that she wanted, as a father figure for Jack. Because yeah, she wasn't willing to let it be anyone other than John, basically. Cute little cave. Pretty good spot to camp. Did I see a bigger cave up here? I don't know if I can get to it though. Okay, nothing in them though. Any more cool caves? There's a chest in this one. Search the chest. Yes, I knew I'd find something if I kept trying. Erotic photograph. Who's been hiding erotic stuff in here? Otis Miller. Why does that ring a bell? Hold on. Famous gunslingers. I knew I recognised the name. Famous gunslingers and outlaws, an illustration of the Otis Miller boys. Wow, so this was their stash. Blimey. Okay, I'm gonna look at the photographs. If you're like a kid, don't look. Cheeky nipple tassels. Very randy stuff. What are you doing to my chair? It's actually quite a nice photo. Very, What are you doing? A lady bearing fruits. How'd you like them apples? I'll stop. I mean, to be fair, she just looks like she's just woken up. I get it. It's a Sunday. Ooh la la. What are the strings about on her arm and her legs? And why does it look like she has a giant bruise on her bum? Who did that? There's a story behind that bruise. Otherwise, it's a very lovely photo. But I want to know how that happened. Hi Jenga, nice of you to just drop in. Weird that, like, I don't know, maybe those photos are just very precious to them. Gosh, they would have lost their minds if they ever had the internet. That's cool though. I found like the Otis. Oh, I need to check out how good that gun is. I got too distracted by all the erotic photographs. Otis Miller's revolver. It's gold though, that's pretty cool. Next up is Molly. Poor Molly. Not unlike my guess for Abigail. I think she was young and naive. I think Molly was a bit of a hopeless romantic. I think I mean, we know she read books around camp quite a lot. I don't know what books they were, but I wouldn't be surprised if she sort of, when she was younger, had read stories of, like, you know, love stories where tall dark stranger shows up and whisks you away on a life of adventure and romance. And I don't know how or when she met Dutch, but he was probably a tall dark stranger who offered to whisk her away to a life of romance and adventure. You know, who didn't at a younger age feel like they were special, and one day their life could be like in the books and the stories, and they'll get whisked away. We probably still get it with kids now, like waiting for their Hogwarts letter, or yeah, waiting to be like the chosen one of some kind of brilliant adventure. You know, she probably fell in love with Dutch, and Dutch seemed very fond of her, and then it was probably quite romanticised, you know, living a life on the road, sleeping under the stars, being free and doing whatever they wanted. Every day was theirs to seize, kind of thing. I don't know if he went off of her because of anything she'd done or said, or if, you know, he liked her for a bit and then something else shiny happened. It's like that meme where the guy is with his girlfriend and then sees another girl. But yeah, he obviously lost interest, and just, we kind of stepped into the story at this point, so we never saw how it happened or what happened before then. But yeah, he just seemed to discard her. He complained about her all the time, about how she was like nagging and getting on his nerves and stuff. Again, I don't know if that's what changed how he felt about her, or if that started because his feelings for her changed, and so then she became more desperate for his attention and love, and started nagging because she was unhappy. I mean, she clearly felt no attachment to the rest of the gang. You know, she was there for Dutch. I don't think she minded at all being there for Dutch, you know, her one and only. But then when Dutch sort of cast her to one side, she's now sort of stuck in limbo, like waiting on this ghost of her once romance with a bunch of people she doesn't really know or care much for. You know, she gave up everything. Her poem itself said, like, I gave you all. From what that poem said and from how I interpreted it, it sounded like she had quite a good life going for her. And, you know, she gave it all up, and she literally went across to America to be with Dutch. You know, she sacrificed a lot to be with him, which just makes it an even more bitter pill to swallow that he sort of cast her aside when he'd sort of had his fun. You know, Dutch became her home, her safe place, and when she didn't have that anymore, you know, what did she have left in the gang? She wasn't close to any of us, she didn't really care for us. Dutch was just sort of like an ever-present taunt to her of what she no longer had. And the more and more she tried to, like, cling him back, the more put off of her he got, and complained about her being naggy and stuff. So she'd sort of had nowhere to go back to, it seemed. Like, she'd given up her old life, so it seemed like she had nowhere to go back to. She'd sacrificed everything for this future with Dutch, but now there was no future with Dutch, so eventually, of course, she sort of tried to make her own way in the very short bit of life she had after the gang. I do think she loved Dutch to the very end. You can love and hate someone at the same time, and I feel like that's what she felt for Dutch in the end. You know, she saw what had happened. She wasn't blind to it. She knew that Dutch didn't feel the same way about her anymore. But she hated him for it, and I think she was angry at him for it. But she also couldn't help the fact that she still loved him, which probably just made her more angry. And so even when the Pinkertons picked her up, you know, she gave them nothing. She could have given them so much. At once she was the closest to Dutch. I know she knew where all of our camps were. She knew the strengths and weaknesses of all the members. She probably had a lot of information that could have really screwed us over if she'd passed it on, but she still kept quiet to the very end. And then unfortunately, as she often had done, she let her emotions get the better of her, especially when she was drunk. I feel like if she was sober, she wouldn't have been that stupid. But drinking clouds your judgment, and I think she just wanted to make Dutch as angry and unhappy as possible in that moment. Because even if she still loved him, she hated him as well. And I think, you know, she probably thought, why should I be the only one suffering? Why should I be the one to suffer when Dutch has done this to me? So she wanted to make him suffer. And I think, you know, she knew that he hated betrayal. She knew that he would be really unhappy if he found out that there was a rat in the camp and someone he trusted and had confided in had betrayed him. And so I think she thought, like, yeah, that's the wound I can push on. Probably didn't think about the consequences, or maybe just didn't care when she was drunk, that she knew it was going to be a offence punishable by death. Which is a real shame, because I don't think she would have done it sober. Next is Mrs. Grimshaw. I think she was a pretty solid, consistent character through the whole thing. You know, she didn't change. I feel like she's too stubborn to change for anyone or anything, really. She'd obviously been with the gang for a very long time. I think, even though she, I believe, joined the gang after Arthur, and possibly even John as well, you know, Arthur and John joined the gang quite young in their teens. So chances are she probably saw Arthur and John grow up. So I think she probably had a very maternal role with them. I think that's why they can seem to get away with more. I think you can tell with her interactions with Arthur. You know, he has a bit more sway with her. He can get away with a bit more. And I guess it's because of that bond that they have. It's almost like Dutch was a father figure to him and Mrs. Grimshaw was like a mother figure to him. That's like the impression I got. I think she's kind of adopted that role with all of them. I often would say, didn't I, that she was like the camp mum. She's obviously very bossy, fierce lady. I would not want to cross her or get on the wrong side of her. But I feel like with all the gang, especially her girls, who she seemed to like mostly oversee, it seemed almost like her approach was nobody can mess with my gang but me. Like she could be absolutely savage to those people. You know, she hit the girls, she'd yell, you know, she was pretty mean, but nobody was allowed to touch her gang. I don't condone how she treated the girls a lot of the time at all. It was very harsh, very brutal. I've been in there, haven't I? I think in her mind, she really cared about the gang. You know, most of the people in it as well. Or at the very least, like the OG crew and the girls. I don't know how she felt about the others so much. And I feel like she cared about them, she wanted to look after them. But I feel like to do that, she felt like everyone needed to pull their own weight. Everyone needed to work hard to ensure that everyone was fed, everyone had a place to stay, everyone was kept safe. So for her, I think it was a bit of tough love. I think she was doing it with the best at heart, but she wasn't doing it in a very nice way. Oh, is this the... It may be time. Is this the panther? I'm scared. I don't know why I'm so scared of it. It's just... Cougars are scary and this was like... Oh, it's a... Oh, it's
Not that
cougar.
recent, though.
I thought it was panther. Okay, well, cougars are still scary, so a legendary one is no joke. Yeah, at the end, when it was about taking sides, she didn't ask for a further explanation. She didn't tell everybody to calm down. You know, she immediately took Arthur's side. She didn't even know the whole story yet, but Micah was new to the gang. Arthur, of course, she'd known for a long time. You know, she knew him through and through.
Okay.
She was very She was very protective over him. She had his back. And then Micah, this new guy in the gang, is threatening her, Arthur, with a gun. She wasn't having that. So I think that was why immediately she got a gun, took Arthur's side without question. And unfortunately it cost her her life. But I feel like she would have been quite proud to go down that way, doing right by Arthur. It's a shame she died, but, you know, I don't think she would have died with any regret for having done that. Probably just a regret that she didn't shoot Micah first. Haha! It didn't eat me! Oh, no. Cancel. Abort. I got to stop doing that. I keep forgetting they don't degrade. Oh, it was a cougar. Oh, I had it wrong this whole time. I think I saw black, so I was thinking of, like, panther. I could have sworn one of the trinkets needed, like, a panther eye or something. So how do I get that, then? So yeah, I think Mrs. Grimshaw was like a constant, strong, protective, maternal, scary personality. She scared me a bit at times. Yeah, she wouldn't let anyone mess with her or her own. but she was pretty savage herself at times. But again, I quite like that there is no character who isn't flawed. No character is perfect in this game, even like the good ones. And yeah, for her, I suppose it was her like fierce, aggressive attitude, even to the people she cared about. So my next one, as different as this is Jack Marston. I know he was only young, but he was a member of the gang.
Hey, easy.
Even if an unwilling, unknowing one. You know, he didn't really have much of a say at that age with his mum and dad both in the gang. But he was a member of the Vandalin gang, or Dutch's boys, as I believe we were called. I had no idea that was our name this whole time. One observation I have, I'm so surprised that Jack ended up such a emotionally sound, well-behaved, stable kid. I've known kids before who've had a very disruptive life at quite a young age. And again, I'm no psychologist. I'm not saying this is the case for every child who goes through this sort of thing. But of the ones I know, they've tended to develop like behavioural issues. Whether it's sort of throwing tantrums or becoming quite aggressive.
You know what to do, girl.
As aggressive as like a 4-year-old kid can. Or getting like separation anxiety, or you know, like there's so many different ways it can kind of show. But they're at such a young, vulnerable, impressionable age. I think at an age that kind of relies on stability and security and oh, another corpse. Up there? Okay. If you think about what Jack actually went through, you know, he wouldn't have known the reasoning behind all of this, like what was actually happening. But we're constantly moving camps, so as far as he's concerned... Ooh. Jesuit missionary. Found a poor man from a long time ago. Chilled me for some reason. Who was he? I'm sorry I always zoom in on the dead people. I just find them really interesting. I don't know if I'm saying that right. A Jesuit missionary? If it's that old and looking at like his clothes, they look like they were quite nice clothes. They've not like deteriorated into rags. So they're probably quite high quality. They look like very nicely decorated too. Who is that? What a final resting place as well. Yeah, so we're constantly changing where we live, which is disruptive enough in itself. His parents didn't have a very stable relationship with each other. You know, his mum was always around. John! Sort your life out. Yeah, Abigail really did try her best for Jack and was always around, but she was always very unhappy and complained a lot about his dad. And John was just not around in the earlier days. You know, he was very absent, had very little to do with Jack. Yeah, he doesn't have a sort of one home to be familiar with. His home is constantly changing. His dad isn't around, and his mum isn't happy. They've obviously, I don't know to what extent Jack was exposed to it or aware of it, but obviously the gang was in a really stressful situation after what happened in Blackwater. You know, 2 of the people that he's been around for a bit. I don't know how long the Calendar Boys were around. I think it did say, and I've forgotten. But that's another thing. People keep coming and going from the gang. You know, it's not just like this one stable group. You know, people were dying or possibly leaving. I don't think I heard of anyone leaving, actually. I think they just died. You know, they just died. But then also loads of people kept joining, so I don't know at what point Jack was born and who was in the group at that point. But since then, we know that Micah joined, I think Jenny joined, the Calendar Boys probably joined. There's always these new people coming in. Yeah, which could be a bit unsettling for a young kid as well. Like, he's probably trying to build up a sense of family and... a skunk. Not yet. I need milkweed first. Yeah, he's trying to build up a sense of family and, like, who his family are, like, who are his people. But when that keeps changing, that must be quite difficult as well. And then he just gets full-on abducted and taken by the stranger he doesn't know, and then shown this whole different lifestyle he's never known, and then he gets taken back to his old lifestyle. Like, there's just so much change for a young, like, for anybody would struggle with all of that going on in their life. But now imagine it's a child, a young boy. I don't know how old Jack was, but let's say he was like 4 or 5 years old or something. Especially if he found out, and I don't know if he knew, but if he found out that Shaun and Kieran and that died. Actually, I remember when Kieran came into camp dead, I saw Abigail like grabbing Jack and like running him towards the doors, because obviously then the O'Driscolls came in. So I feel like Jack must have seen it, because they were in the same front of the house area. Like, he was literally feet from Kieran's head. So he must have seen it. You know, Shaun, he went away from camp and then never came back. They could have said anything, but he must have known that Kieran died. Yeah, so I'm just amazed that Jack is a sound, healthy, mature kid. But even like once he grew up a bit, like, he seems to be fine. I know there's still a massive disconnect between him and John, which I can kind of understand, because again, in those young, impressionable, moldable years, he didn't really have a dad around, so there's that. And then I think John is he's a bit awkward as a dad at times. He seems fine with like other people and his horse he's great with, but he doesn't seem to know how to be with Jack. Again, I think going back to what I said about Abigail, you know, John is very good at the lifestyle he's living, but I don't think he ever really saw himself as becoming a father, and it's happened, you know, he is a dad, but I think he's sort of figuring out still how to be a dad, how to be with Jack and stuff. I don't think it's something that comes naturally to him. So yeah, I think possibly a combination of that awkwardness and coldness. But also, is that the corpse I already went to? No, I went to that one. Another corpse? Yeah, partly the awkwardness, and possibly because he wasn't around much when Jack was young either. Oh, is it on the overhang? One influence I definitely think I have seen, and some of you from your comments I think have also picked up on this, so I don't think it's just me. And that is the influence that I think Hosea has had on Jack. Jack was definitely missing a father figure in his earlier days. I think in a way Arthur kind of filled that role a bit. I know he called him like Uncle Arthur and stuff. You know, he knew that Arthur wasn't his dad, but Arthur kind of stepped in and filled that role for him. You know, he doesn't necessarily need a father figure. Abigail was a perfectly good mum, but I feel like things like Abigail wouldn't have taken him fishing or messed around with him and stuff in the same way that Arthur did. Sorry.
Okay.
But I think he did have a grandfather figure. That looks painful.
Damn.
In Hosea. So we saw a lot of the time Hosea would sit there and read to Jack. So I feel like Hosea kind of gave Abigail a bit of a break. Don't tell me there's just a really easy way here. He definitely seemed to be like a bit of a granddad to Jack. And then we saw it as well when Jack was older, his love for books. And I know it's going back again to the nature and nurture debates. But he doesn't seem, his personality doesn't seem to take after Abigail's or John's as much. Like, he seems very peaceful, obedient, reflective. Abigail is feisty. John is loyal, a little bit dense at times, a bit rebellious. But I didn't really see much of that in Jack. But what I do see is a very peaceful boy with an open mind. You know, he's trying to like keep the peace and do the right thing. He seems to, when he was showing that regret for Rufus and stuff, he seems to be quite reflective and of his own actions and wants to do the right thing. I think I see more of Hosea in him than even his own parents. And I don't know if that's just a coincidence. You know, he is young. It does almost seem like in his personality there's a lot more of like peaceful, wise Hosea, who loved reading books and being quite mellow, than kind of feisty, naggy Abigail or like rebellious, stubborn John. So yeah, I do wonder sometimes if that influence rubbed off on him as well. Oh, did I not have to come all the way up here? Oh, they're hanging. I didn't see that from the silhouette. How did this log end up here? Did they do this to themselves? Or did someone do this and push them off? That log feels to me like it shouldn't be very stable. Okay, so I guess I've got to go back down and then shoot the rope. Yeah, the influence of Arthur and Hosea, I think, were really good for him. I've not seen too much in the way of... oh, now I've got myself in a pickle. How the disruption of the gang might have affected him. Maybe that didn't rub off on him. And despite all the sort of chaos of his early life, maybe he ended up okay. By some miracle. Uh-oh. I deserved that. I think Hosea and Arthur would be really pleased and really proud if they saw how Jack had grown up. And I think really, really relieved to see he had such a much more secure and safe lifestyle, even though I know that they didn't want to conform to civilization and stuff. Yeah, I think they'd be happy for Jack to see him having such a stable life. Let's try this again. And now he's... Oh my gosh! I didn't realise they were hanging like that. Oh, buddy. Oh, did you get... I don't think they were hung. I think he got his foot stuck in a rope and fell / was pushed off. Okay. Sorry, this might hurt even though you're already dead. Very finely dressed. He was on a treasure trail hunt? Well, this didn't end well for you. The Elemental Trail Map 1. Which means there's gonna be more, but we expected that. Shows a landmark and other clues to help find treasure. Okay, a standalone hearth? Is that what it's called? So to me in the background that looks like cliffs in the ocean, but also I don't know why there'd be a standalone hearth there, like on a beach or something. So I don't know if that's supposed to be trees and grass. I have come across one. Was that in Roanoke Ridge? There was one place where there was just a standalone hearth. Could try there. I won't spend too long trying to find somewhere though. I'll give it a go, but if need be, now I've finished the game, I can look at guides and stuff, so I'll try on my own knowledge and guesswork, but I won't make anyone sit through hours and hours of me trying to figure these out. For Tilly, I don't have too much to say. Again, I found her fairly consistent, I'd say. Like, she didn't change too much. Or like, there wasn't too much character development, I'd say, apart from, again, just getting... She obviously got very nervous and stressed when we went down towards Lemoyne, because of the history that they have with black people down there, and obviously, like, the strong slave trade that they had before the Civil War. I know her and Lenny weren't very comfortable there, with the Lemoyne Raiders still about, trying to like bring back the old ways and stuff. I can understand that. Apart from that, and obviously just her nerves in general, as things started to take a bad turn. You know, she seems like a very lovely, kind and gentle, authentic person. But there was definitely, I didn't get to see it often, but we did get to see a sort of a fire in her. Like when the Foreman brothers took her. I think I've already seen this before. You know, she wasn't gentle, Tilly, anymore. Oh yeah, that's one I already got earlier. You know, she was quite happy to shoot him, and I think it was when they went after the last one, and Mrs. Grimshaw told her to stay, and then she was like, "Oh, don't worry, if I see him, I'll kill him," sort of thing. Like, we saw like a feistiness to Tilly, where normally she's so sweet and gentle. So that was pretty cool. We do know a bit more about her story and how she joined the gang. So I think, don't hold me to the details because I've forgotten a lot of them, but I think her mum was killed and she was taken. Or maybe, yeah, I think so. But I know she was taken at a young age to the gang that the Foreman brothers had. Not really, like, against her will. She didn't want to be with them, but she didn't have a choice. She was taken as a child and forced to be there. And then I think one of them was abusive to her, or tried to push some advances on her, and that was one of the Foreman brothers, I believe, and she killed him, and then has been on the run ever since. And of course they've had a bit of a vendetta against her ever since. They don't see her, they don't sympathise with her side of it, they just see it that she killed one of them and then got away. So and then she got taken in by the gang, which I think was a bit of a place of refuge for her. Again, safety in numbers, like she wouldn't have probably made it very far on her own, especially with the Foreman brothers after her, but with the gang I think she felt a bit more untouchable, a bit safer. You know, the Foreman brothers would really have to think twice before trying to take on the Vanderlyn gang. I got the feeling she just wanted somewhere to belong. She just wanted a family, somewhere to belong. She didn't like when things got really dangerous in the gang, like the Pinkertons were closing in on us. But I don't think it bothered her as much as the gang itself falling apart. I think she kind of gave me the impression that, you know, she was just wanted a family, and she was happy to see through anything with them as long as we were all together. I think she feared being forced to live a life she didn't choose or had no control over. You know, she had it with the Foreman brothers. I think she was afraid of the Lemoyne Raiders taking her, either killing her or even worse, her ending up back in some kind of slavery. I think she just wanted a home, a family, and control over her life, like the freedom that she rightfully deserved. Apart from that, she was just a really lovely person, very reliable.
Come on, girl. One more time.
Very good moral compass. And near the end, she wasn't sort of blinded by loyalty for Dutch. I think she was very grateful to Dutch for taking her in, but I don't think she, you know, would have done anything for him, if that included like betraying the other people she cared about. So, you know, she definitely seemed to stand by Arthur. She could see quite clearly when everything started descending into madness, and yeah, I was really, really pleased to see her happy, you know, married with a little one on the way, because again, I think it's unfortunate she had to search again for it, but she's finally found family and a home, and at least this one seems more stable this time. It's not a gang on the run from the law all the time. Now it was an accountant, wasn't it? She was married to an accountant. You know, he seemed to be a really lovely guy. He seemed to follow the law and live a very lawful life. They seemed very comfortable and settled, and it was everything she deserved and wanted. So yeah, a shame that she had to go through and endure everything that she did with the gang, but she got there in the end, which was really nice. And the last on my list is Trelawny. It was really difficult finding a spot for him because I didn't see enough of him, or get to know him well enough to really have him high up on the list of my favourites. But at the same time, I really definitely had a soft spot for Trelawny. I definitely thought, until you guys said otherwise, that he was English. I thought that his accent was... Because obviously I wasn't around back in the sort of start of the 1900s. So I don't really know like how they talked, but I just assumed that was a very like posh, sort of rich toff English accent, that maybe because he'd come over here, he'd picked up a little bit of like a American twang or something. But I definitely thought he was English. And then he said he was from Cornwall. That was exciting. Because I live in Devon, in England.
You got this, girl.
So at the very bottom left of England. And Cornwall is next to Devon. So Cornwall's very close to where I am. We're like neighbouring counties. So yeah, that was pretty cool. But I guess it might be that his ancestors were from Cornwall. Either maybe he was born in Cornwall and grew up in America, or maybe, yeah, he wasn't actually English, but like that's where his heritage is from. I know that's thrown me off a bit, quite a lot through this game. When people say they're like from a country that they weren't actually born in, but it's because their heritage is from there. Thing going on over there. Oh, is it that shooting guy again? Oh, fine. I'll do your silly game.
You there. Would you be interested in some friendly competition?
Yeah.
I've come all the way north from Mexico to challenge a real American gunslinger. You him?
I'm no gunslinger, all right. But I do like a challenge. What you thinking then?
Okay, man. That's what I like to hear. Look, man, rules are simple, okay? Whoever shoots more of these bottles wins.
Is this cheating?
Just draw your gun and aim when you're ready, all right? Shoot! Damn it all! How the hell did you beat me, huh? Oh.
Just a better shot, I suppose.
That didn't make me happy at all.
How about we raise the stakes, huh?
All right, let's do it.
Aha, that's a good call, amigo. All right, real simple. First one to hit 4 flying birds wins. Stand near me, and as soon as they come out, it's anyone's shot. Be patient. Ah, there they go.
Ah, I lost him.
Oh, man, stupid. So you can shoot, huh? Here it is, okay? Man of my word.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Better watch out next time. You'll see.
That doesn't give me the option to decline. So we know Trelawny dipped in and out a lot. I kind of liked that though, because again, it's like I said about Rev, like not starting happy. It's like it mixed it up a bit. I didn't even realise he was kind of considered a gang member at first when I first met him in Valentine.
You okay, girl? Let's go.
I was like, oh, it's just some random person that I won't be seeing often, and of course we did hang out quite a bit. He was a con artist. That was like his trade. And I think I was giving it some thought about sort of, you know, what his deal was. Look how dirty you are. As a con artist,
That's better, girl.
he's probably very good at weighing up risk. You know, assessing people for what he could gain from them. Weighing up the risk. And then trying to play it safe. I don't think he was like Dutch where he was like a big risk taker. I think, you know, obviously there's some element of risk in
Hello, girl.
being a con artist. But yeah, I think he was quite smart and calculated with it. And I think he was doing that with the gang. Having thought about it, I think, you know, he saw the advantages to being in with like a big gang of people who would like, who were very aligned the same way as him, quite happy to break the law to make money. But also I think he saw the risk of being associated with us and being one of us, that could come with that. So I felt like he always had one foot in, one foot out, so he could kind of join us when he needed to, when it was beneficial for him, but then also he could like dip out as soon as it got too hot and too dangerous, and probably wouldn't be considered part of like the Vandalin gang, so hopefully wouldn't be hunted down. He was very good at disappearing as well, so it'd be probably quite easy for him to sort of, you know, dip in, do a job with us and then vanish, and when the lawmen or the Pinkertons wanted to come after us, you know, he'd be nowhere to be found. I think as long as they got us and Dutch, as far as they were concerned, that was their score. I think he saw the gang as kind of like, and Dutch as like a business partner. That's not to say he didn't care about us. I think he did, especially again like the longer term members of the gang. But not enough, I think, to risk his own skin too much. I think he was very much looking out for himself a lot of the time. You know, he'd show up, he'd be a jolly good fellow and a good laugh. When he ran into trouble, obviously we gave him refuge and he was quite happy to stay. He would help us out, you know, he'd show up and do us a favour and stuff. But I think it was all about keeping a good business relationship for him. You know, keeping us sweet, keeping us on his side, doing favours for us, so we would do favours for him, and it was just a mutually good agreement we had with him. But also I don't think he was gonna like take a bullet for us or anything. But when he was captured, you know, he could have again given up all of our information. He did know quite a bit, but he still kind of kept it to himself. He didn't talk or give them anything. Who knows with time if that would have stayed the case, but He definitely was loyal in terms of keeping our secrets and stuff. He'd never sell our information. But I just don't think... I think he had a good survival instinct, and I don't think he would stick around if it got too dangerous. I think that's why he left as well when he did, because he saw that it was only going one way and it was getting
Look what I found!
dangerous.
He's in the Del Lobo
You know what they
gang!
do with them 10 stars in Mexico, boy?
Hey! Hey! What's all the nonsense?
You don't release me now. 12 angry Mexicans is gonna ride through this town. Burn it all to hell. Only lock me up if you want this town to burn, Sheriff.
We do not respond amicably to threats. What's the charge?
He was robbing a stage.
Then the sentence is death. Make
Hey,
your
no!
peace,
The
partner.
boy was gonna put me in cell!
This is wartime, and like you said,
No!
we can't take the risk.
Sheriff?
Okay. From now on, trials are going to be quick, and justice even quicker. We will not submit to these lawless gangs. Get this trash out of town. Where there's one Del Lobo, there'll be more.
Yes, sir, Sheriff.
Now you can be a help or hindrance. You want to help? Follow me in.
So yes, sir.
That how you go about it?
That's just how it is.
I was lucky they put me in a cell and didn't just shoot me on the spot. They literally caught me there as well. They have a bounty poster now. Hello, sir.
I was hoping you was the obliging kind. I didn't want to be this varietal of sheriff, but the situation demands it. Just take that bounty poster there and you'll find out. These fellas is known as the Del Lobo gang, meaning of the wolf in the Mexican tongue.
Oh.
I only wish they was that civilized.
Okay, you got a bounty? I'll take a look at it.
I like him. He has a really cool voice as well. He's pretty badass. Wanted, $60 reward will be paid upon the arrest, not death, of Joaquin Arroyo, charged and wanted for questioning in cases murder, robbery, arson. That's probably in cases of murder, robbery, and arson. A Mexican by birth, aged 42, 5 foot 9 inches, weighing around 150 pounds, complexion dark, moustache and goatee. He is known to frequent red light districts, saloons, and was spotted near Solomon's Folly. He is a member of the Del Lobo gang and should be considered extremely dangerous. The reward will be paid immediately upon presentation to the office of the Sheriff Freeman Tumbleweed. Sheriff Freeman. Okay. Let's go after him. I definitely don't want to cross the sheriff.
Joaquin Arroyo. Word is he's up at Solomon's Folly. These Del Lobos been killing, stealing, torturing, and tormenting the good people of this region for too long. Only good one's a dead one. Except if they know a thing or two, and I believe this one does. You bring him here, I'll have a few words, and then I'll send him to St. Peter. You have my sworn oath on that.
This bounty. Alive seems a pretty big ask for one of these Del Lobos.
It is a pretty big ask, and that's a pretty big price. If you're worried about justice, he won't be alive for long after you walk him through that door.
I'm gonna ride across the desert, bring you a bounty just so you can kill him.
God, no. I'll converse with him first. But after that, things will move real swift around here. Ours ain't a hanging judge, you'll see. He's the I'm with you whatever kind.
I got everything I need, except this bounty.
The poster says alive. Not to be mistaken.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
Gentlemen?
You have the authority of this office. Don't be mistaken.
Okay. Alive. Let's not kill him. Okay, let's go and catch this guy. Hopefully. Let's try our best. I was asked a couple of other questions that I can answer now. One of them was by J-Dash, and it was, which do I think are the most tragic characters? Now, this is a story of tragedy. There's no doubt about it. There is so much tragedy in this whole story, whether you're looking at the entire thing and the gang or individual characters. So I had a broad answer, but I decided to narrow it down to 3 of the most tragic ones, in my opinion. I picked Kieran, Molly, and Rain's Fall, and I'll go into why on the ride home. For now, I should probably get my guns, shouldn't I? No, girl, come back.
We can't kill the kid. Joaquin vouched for him. If Joaquin Arroyo was here, he'd use his own knife on the little squeaker.
Oh, Dios mío! Dios mío! Dios mío!
He ain't one of us. You ever train to while we kill him, bleed him here?
I ain't about to get killed just because you second guess someone wrong.
No, you about to get killed because you don't got grounded.
Think about this.
Let's think about it. He ain't going nowhere. Joaquin can decide.
Dios mío, lo siento.
Sounds like the boss guy isn't here. Count 3. They're going to rob a train, so maybe he's already over there. I also said his name very wrong. I guess in the same way Javier isn't Javier, it's a huh sound. Okay. I don't want to get it wrong though, but I'm pretty sure he's not there. I'll know when they show up on the map.
Joaquin Arroyo!
Joaquin's not here! Please, he's not here!
Everything's okay. Just tell me where he is.
Hop on the tracks! They're robbing the train!
Get out of here before I change my mind.
Oh, thank you. Gracias, señor.
Let's go, my darling. Robbing a train. There's their horses. There's the Jepdrapers. I rode right past them. I'm not going to talk about it. In question or threaten. Can I do that from here?
Hey, over there! Which one of you's Joaquin Arroyo?
Arroyo, run!
Shake hands with the devil for me.
That's got to be him. Yeah, okay.
Down your bounty!
Right, hold on. He's chasing after me.
Just try and get close enough! Come on, vaquero!
Oh, I'll try.
You ain't going to take me!
You were saying?
What the hell?
Royal, someone wants to have a talk with you.
Okay, right, let's loot you.
Let's see what you got in here.
You dumb bastard! Do you know who I am? You're gonna die slow. And you're gonna die hurting. I'm going to watch them do it. And I'm going to laugh.
You have a fine imagination, Royal. I'll grant you that.
I'll have every del Lobo in Austin come looking for me. We are an army, a legion. You hear those horses, those shots? You'll know your time has come.
You sure are colorful.
You know that the Lobos? Hey, we killed and we burned all the way across the country. You should be scared. You should be quaking in your boots, vaquero. They'll take your ears, they'll take your nose. There won't be nothing left on your head except bone.
What was that? I didn't hear you.
Can't imagine why you're wanted.
I'm going to take the bounty poster. I'm going to shove it down your mouth. And I'm going to burn you alive, mister. You wanna burn? You wanna scream? That's what's happening to you. You hear me? Are you listening?
Okay, well, I'll take that on board. Here we are. Our time together is almost at an end.
I'm going to see you again, mister. Believe me there.
Sheriff, you looking for Joaquin Arroyo?
I ordered him. Didn't have much hope of seeing him, though. Put him in the cell.
You couldn't come get me, Sheriff? You yellow belly. You coward. You sent some vaquero.
I could have come after you, Arroyo. But it's so damn hot out there, I didn't want to sweat.
My friends, they're gonna come for you.
Then they'll die, too. Now save some breath for my questions, boy.
He's so badass.
I believe you'll find that figure to your liking.
Money! Real money! I love New Austin. I should stay here.
If the law's happy, I'm happy.
I shouldn't think it will be long before another poster goes up there. Come back and check.
Ooh. Yes, please. Oh, look at you. Wriggling around. Oh, this place does get sandstorms as well. Okay, do you have any rooms here? No place to stay, but we can get some food. Let's have some roast beef. Oh, look at that.
Hey there, partner.
So where can one stay the night? Can one stay the night? It says board and lodging, but I don't know if it lets me in there. That's pretty run down. Yeah, I figured. I can't believe that Del Lobo bloke gets a place to stay in this town, and I don't. Oh, I wonder if that's a hotel. I assume that was just some rich fancy mayor's house. I did want to go and check it out though.
Hey there, miss.
Hi there.
Okay, so maybe these are just rich people. I wanted to go and check out the town, but everywhere's closed. Oh, there's a light on in that house. You're home. You're pretending not to be home. Despicable. Should I just show up at a window? Words.
Remember, people, the law is king. King!
There he is. Sheriff Freeman.
Howdy, mister.
All of you. This is Tumbleweed. We are the end of the civilized world. Anarchy exists just outside this town, but here, life is good. And life is good because we follow the rules. Disobedience will be fatal. None of you forget that.
Partner.
Welcome to Tumbleweed, son. Treat us with respect and we'll love you like family. Misbehave, and we'll slaughter you like a hog. That clear, boy? I said, is that clear, boy?
Yes, sir.
I ain't a troublemaker. Hello, miss.
Mister.
This is a law-abiding town, my friends. We follow the rules. We live the rules. The rules make us happy. The rules are America. America is a land of laws. I am the arbiter of the law. I am the rules. And in this town, the rule of law shall be absolute. I hope that is clear.
Quite a place, huh? Just keep yourself safe.
See ya.
Follow the rules, ma'am. Always follow the rules. Okay, so he's a character. He feels like a someone. I wonder if he's like in Red Dead Redemption 1.
I hope you are all having a wonderful day today. A wonderful law-abiding day. We are building a great civilization out here in the desert. And what is the hallmark of civilization, my friends? Let me tell you.
Rules.
The hallmark is obedience to the law. The law is king. The law is emperor. The law is a bastard who will strike you down and a tender mother who will nurse you if you let her. So, it's up to you what you want from this life and from your interactions with the law.
Is this how you spend every night? You go to the saloon, unwind. Call it a day, you know? Sign off your shift. How does anybody sleep at night if you're yelling this stuff in the middle of the street? Oh, I can go and read their graves. That seems like a fun pastime. I'm a bit of a weirdo. In memory of Abe Shackelford. So drunk he did not remember dying. How do you know? Did you ask him? Truman Briggs. Loved by his mistress, murdered by his wife. Ooh, damn. They always find out. Here lives Henrietta Feeney of Ridgewood Farm. Obadiah Graves. That's an ironic name. Hanged for a murder he did not commit. I wonder if his family wrote that, or if like it was genuinely found that he didn't commit it. Oh, that house has a hole in it. I want to check that out later. I haven't noticed that before. Henry Grimshaw, the notorious highwayman and horse thief. Oh, but he's still got a nice burial and a headstone and stuff. Betsy Glover, accidentally killed in the 34th year of her life. Ooh, that's unfortunate. Sorry to hear that, Betsy. Look at the state of it! All of this stuff's fallen down. My goodness, what happened here? the whole side of the house. What happened? Was it like a tornado or... Like, this isn't just wear and tear. Something has like ripped this off the house. I think it's like a tornado or something. Whoa. Don't think I'll have another poster yet, but...
It's the bounty hunter. I could smell you on my love.
Oh, he's still alive?
Now, have you talked to the sheriff? Like a good little boy?
I only gonna talk to your mama, okay? But she can fit through the door.
That's very clever. Well done.
He just make a yo mama joke at me? Brilliant. Roscoe Brenner.
First time in Tumbleweed, sir? Take a look around.
Hello, sir.
Read up on the guns there in the catalog. I'll fetch them for you to take a look.
Lodging? Here? In the gun shop? I would not have thought. Oh, bath, yes please.
Can you arrange a bath for me?
Yeah, hot bath never hurt anyone.
Outside? Am I reading that right?
Don't matter. Come on, all right. Come back when you're ready.
Oh, right.
Morning there, partner.
Morning. How does this work? Oh, do I then go upstairs? I'm so confused. Is the downstairs one the bath? The one that says bath. Yeah, that'd be it. Okay. Okay, we got there in the end. The water's probably cold by now. Nice and clean. Okay. So I guess the room is upstairs. That one I was trying to like creep in, I think that's actually a bedroom you can hire. Would not have thought you could... It doesn't even say outside.
Welcome, mister. Let me know if I can help you find something. All the essentials, tobacco, cigarettes, and the like are all along the tall shelf. Food is scattered through the shop, as you can see by the shelves and by the window. Everything else can be found in my catalog on the counter.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'm here if you change your mind.
Morning.
Good morning. Okay, I'm gonna ride myself back to home, the ranch, but I'm actually gonna go via Blackwater first, just in case we can find Nigel. But if not, I will be venturing to the rest of the map in due course, so I can always catch him wherever he is if our paths cross again. Yes, so going back to the question I was answering from J-Dash, who do I think are the most tragic characters? I tried to limit myself to 3. There are 3 that I feel like are the most tragic. I think it was Molly, Rainsfall, and Kieran. So many others had tragic stories, but also it kind of ended on a positive note, or I feel like they got their redemption, or they got their a good silver lining, or you know, things picked up for them at the end, or they knew what they were going in for, so you know, they got what they expected, and it probably didn't feel as cruel. I kind of already said a lot about Molly earlier, so I won't go into elaborate on that too much, but I feel like, you know, she had this vision and this dream, and I think she thought like her life was made, and she'd got like the opportunity of a lifetime to live a life she dreamed of. You know, a life on the road, a life of adventure and romance with her one true love, and she gave up everything. You know, she gave up a really good life, and she moved to a totally different country. She sacrificed so much for this life that she dreamed of, and she probably thought at the time she was like the luckiest girl in the world. And then in the end, she was kind of betrayed, which is ironic because she was betrayed by the person who feared betrayal. But yeah, Dutch obviously sort of liked her for a bit, maybe even loved her. You know, drew her over, and they were together, but then seemed to just sort of cast her to one side, and along with it, this whole dream she had crumbled around her. And, you know, of everything she gave up, it was almost for nothing. You know, she didn't get Dutch in the end. She didn't like where it had taken her to. Yeah, it might have been a bit different if, you know, she'd come all this way and given up so much to be with Dutch. But that hadn't worked out, but she'd found herself having like a brilliant life over here and was quite glad that it led her to it. But she really had nothing. She didn't like the gang. She didn't like her lifestyle. And when she lost Dutch, she'd given up everything, and then she lost what little she had left. Until she ended up just sort of a angry drunk lady who then, before she kind of could piece her life back together and move on from it and maybe, you know, find new purpose and a new life, you know, she made a silly mistake that it was an easy mistake to make, to get drunk and say things you don't mean and kind of speak out of anger, but it cost her her life. I don't think she was very old. I think she had a lot of life ahead of her. And yeah, it just seemed to be like, from this young girl with this dream of how her life was about to be and how she wanted it to be, it just seemed to be one misfortune after another, one betrayal after another. Yeah, it's a very sad story, really, of Molly O'Shea. I mean, she's not perfect. She wasn't. At times she was a bit difficult to deal with. You know, she had her mood swings and she didn't help out much around camp and stuff. But if you kind of see it from her perspective and what she was promised and where she'd come from and what she'd given up and what she'd given it up for, really I feel like she's the one who lost. So for Rain's Fall, we know at one point he had a partner and 2 sons. I'm not very good with my history, and I don't know the timeline of when the first settlers came over. It could have been long before his lifetime or during it. I'm honestly not sure. But again, it seems to be like one misfortune after another. You know, he loved his family. That was clear. He loved his people. He wanted to do right by them. He wanted to see them thriving and happy. He wanted peace and harmony and prosperity for his people. And for his family, and we know that his wife or his partner died. We know that his first and oldest son died, so it was just him and Eagle Flies left. We know that his people were being mistreated and abused and taken advantage of and really treated horribly by the people who'd settled here. Not by all of them, of course. There were some individuals like Arthur and Monroe who, you know, were part of the group of people who settled here, but were decent folk who stood by them, who stood up for them, who helped them. So yeah, by no means was it everybody, but there were a few individuals who abused their power, treated them as like lesser beings, and really disrespected the land that these people were stewards of and kept. You know, sort of disregarding the natural world and just planting down towns and railroads and stuff, because of course it was, you know, an industrial movement. It was about settling and convenience and connection and stuff, but it could have been done in such a better way. Even just upholding promises. We saw with Rain's Fall there were so many treaties signed that they just broke, but what could Rain's Fall do? Because if they retaliated, the settlers would retaliate like that much worse. Yeah, it was difficult, I think, for him, because his people were looking to him to fix the situation, but it was impossible. There was no way out of it. He was backed into a corner essentially, and all he could do was submit or fight back, but then he knew that fighting back would just make it 10 times worse. So yeah, basically him and his people were being bullied. He was the only hope for his people, and he just had to watch as his people were snatched away and beaten and abused and yeah, really badly mistreated. He was powerless, he couldn't do anything, and he still had the weight of the responsibility for all of it on his shoulders. But I think he held on to the idea that, you know, his people were still his people, he still had his clan, his tribe. And then he lost his remaining son after trying everything he could to stop Eagle Flies from getting involved. Using his wisdom and his experience, he knew what would come of it, but Eagle Flies was young and, you know, thought for himself and didn't want to stand by and watch his people get beaten down, which I can completely understand. But I think Rainsfall knew that even though he probably still felt that same anger, he knew that nothing good would come of it, and he kind of had more self-discipline and wisdom. But Eagle Flies just had that fire inside of him and that anger, and was a bit more impulsive with it. Then he lost his last remaining son, the last remaining member of his family. You know, there was no one to carry on his bloodline. None of his own family were left, and he's had to watch all 3 of them die. And then eventually they managed to get his people away north, but then they disbanded, and now he's, you know, everything he had before, his tribe, people, his family, he now has no family left, he now has no people left, you know, no tribe, and so now he's just wandering like a ghost.
Mister, in need of a coach?
No, thank you. Now he's just wandering like a ghost in the land where he lost it all. When we saw him at the train station, he's like, he didn't even know why he was here. He came down here, but he didn't know why. He just, you know, this was where his son was. I think it still haunts him. And he's just kind of, it seems like he's just a bit stuck in a loop of, you know, doesn't know what to do with himself now. I don't think he ever lived just for himself. I think he always lived for his people and his family, and now they're not there to live for anymore. So yeah, I think he'd be one of my most tragic characters. I loved him as well. He was such a lovely person.
Y'all know why we're here today.
You better kill me. You better.
The Skinners are a scourge on this whole state.
It's Elias.
You burn in hell!
With great pleasure, I have been ordered to hang you for your misdeeds.
Your kin died, and they died crying.
Elias
They died
Green,
begging.
a member of the Skinner Brothers gang, mutilated and murdered countless innocent travelers.
You cocksucker!
He left appalling scenes of brutality in his wake. Well, Mr. Green, your foul reign is at an end. You will reap what you have sown.
Dirty son of a bitch!
For your evils, you will hang.
Okay.
All right, let's end this bastard. Do it.
Yeah! Crap. That's it.
Liven things up.
There will be no tolerance for their behavior in this community.
That's it.
Let this be a lesson to all the other Skinners. We shall defeat you, for we are righteous.
Would have paid to see that.
Don't think any Skinners were present. Wow.
How you doing,
It's not very often I see the finale of our bounty missions. Did see a bounty poster. I'll come and get that next time. Actually, we'll do that. A little treat next time. Now they've hung Elias. Oh, did you run out of stuff because you were riding for so long?
That's my lady.
I don't think he's here.
Blackwater, step right up.
No. Okay. Nigel's not here, but we did get to see Elias hang, so that was different. My last is Kieran. I know I always go on about how bad I feel for Kieran and how I've got a soft spot for Kieran, but From what I recall of his story, his parents died when he was very young, or quite young. I think he was old enough to remember that his dad took him fishing, but his parents died when he was quite young, and I want to say it was of cholera, but I can't remember.
Howdy, partner.
Howdy. And I swear he worked at a stables for a bit. I don't know what happened. I can't quite remember what happened. I don't think he was treated particularly well, but he ended up with the O'Driscolls and then was treated really badly. It sounded like he was like forced to be with them. I think kind of like Tilly, I don't think he had a choice. I don't know if like they wouldn't let him leave or if it was, you know, he needed to be with them to survive because he couldn't survive on his own, but he didn't want to be there and yet he felt like he had no choice. But he was like bottom of the pack, picked on, treated really badly, and then of course got captured by us and then tortured by us, and then eventually allowed to stay in the gang, but he was never really, I'd say right until the end of his days, he was never treated well. Ooh, dinner time. You know, he was always considered an O'Driscoll, an outsider, an enemy. Some of the camp members were alright to him, some people were still jerks to him. I don't know how canon it is about him and Mary Beth, but I definitely heard them like sweet talking each other a bit. Or like, you know, they seemed to like each other. I don't know if they were just sweet on each other or actually like going out together. I don't know like what level it was, but obviously there was definitely something between them. And people were starting to like warm to Kieran. I think his reputation as an O'Driscoll was slowly fading and his reputation as being one of us was slowly coming in. Yeah, it just felt like since Kieran's like earliest days, it was just misfortune after misfortune, and every time he was given some hope of this is it, now you've found your place and now you can build a life and now you can be happy, it gets snatched away from him. You know, one thing after the other until eventually he's with us, and it's like finally he can settle in, he can find his place, he can be part of this family, he can find happiness, can find love, and then it gets snatched away again because he gets killed. He gets taken by like the very thing he was the most afraid of, and yeah, and then killed in like the most horrific way, and ridden back to the people who love him to traumatize the people he loved, and he was given like all of the hope of this is it, and then never quite made it there. Every time it was just cut short, and then also his life was just cut horribly short as well. And I know it was because of what happened at 6 Point Cabin, but again he wasn't given a choice in that, so I can't even say like, can I go a bit shorter? No, too much. I can't even say, you know, well, he knew what would happen, he made his choice sort of thing, because his choice was to get castrated or to show us 6 Point Cabin, which isn't really much of a choice. Anyone would have done the same in that situation. Hello, Abigail. So yeah, those are my 3 most tragic, easily. There were definitely other stories. There was quite a few people who
Good girl. Let's go.
Like Karen's story was very, very tragic as well. If I could pick 4, she would have made the list. I just feel like her tragedy was just a bit shorter because, again, I don't know the full story about her and Shaun and stuff, but it seemed like she was very happy until Shaun's death, and it was after that that the tragedy started, whereas for everybody else, who I've mentioned so far, it seems to have been going on for a lot longer, or all of their lives. So that was the only reason she didn't make the top 3, but definitely Karen would be up there within it. It was like a tragic story full of tragic stories, but yeah, those would be my top 3. Rainsfall, Molly, and Kieran. And Angel posted a comment to ask what my favourite state would be. I don't 100% know what counts as a state, so looking at the map, I think a state is like Amberino, New Hanover, Lemoyne, West Elizabeth, and New Austin. If that's the case, and I've got that right, New Hanover would be my favourite state. And I wasn't asked this by Angel, but I'm going to throw in my least favourite as well, which will be Lemoyne. But if it counts as like the Heartlands, Scarlet Meadows, Big Valley and stuff like that, I don't think that counts as like a full state. It's more of like a region or an area. Then my favourite would have to be the Heartlands. And my least favourite, even though it's still in New Hanover, would be Roanoke Ridge, I believe. But yeah, if we're going for the big ones, it would be New Hanover is my favourite. Lemoyne, my least favourite. I did really like the vibrancy of Lemoyne, and I know this is silly because it's a game, but it felt like it would be warmer. To be honest, I think they were like uncomfortably warm, and it seemed like a very humid, mosquito-filled warmth, but yeah, it still felt like tropical and alive and stuff, which I quite liked. But also, it did seem, murky, swampy, full of alligators. It had Saint Denis, which was a big downer for me because I hate Saint Denis. It had the night folk, which actually, I will admit, keep this a secret, were pretty cool. I kind of liked them. They were creepy, but I really liked that element to the game. But yeah, obviously, like in real life, I would hate them so much. But yeah, I think overall it was just, not great in terms of like, if we're talking about states, everywhere else was much more nice and friendly and scenic and stuff like this. That one just felt kind of like sticky and sweaty and muddy and murky and yeah, smoggy with all of the Saint Denis fumes. So I think as well it might also be given what happened in that region. So New Hanover kind of covered, apart from like the very beginning in the Grizzlies, New Hanover kind of covered our beginning and our end. But Lemoyne definitely covered where things took that downward turn until Beaver Hollow. I'd say it covered the majority of the bad stuff that happened. So there might be some kind of like subconscious connotation there with New Hanover, but particularly the West, like the Heartlands and stuff, being like the friendly, happy, everything's gonna be okay, we're all free now, we're safe sort of vibes. And Lemoyne and the Bayou being the kind of like everything's going horribly wrong, this is stressful, this is sad, sort of connotations that I have with it. So thank you for those questions. Keep putting them in the comments. I am keeping track of them and I will answer them while I'm doing these final videos. So do get your questions in if there's anything else you'd like to know my opinion on, or my thoughts on, or my favourites, my least favourites, anything goes. And with that, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you again for putting up with me talking loads. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the characters I mentioned, or any of the characters really. But yeah, I'm by no means an all-seeing, all-knowing person, so this is just my perspective from what I did pick up and what I have been thinking about with the characters, but there's plenty I've horribly overlooked or forgotten about, which is another reason I'm quite excited to replay the story on Low Honor. Because it's taken me so long. It took me 8 months to get through the story. My memory isn't that good, so by the time I got to the end of the story, or now, I've forgotten a lot of what I experienced near the start, or throughout the story. So I'm looking forward to going back, because I think things will trigger that I've forgotten about at the moment, or hadn't considered. And because I'll be doing it at a lot faster pace, because I'll be doing less exploration, it will be more connected, I think, for me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And maybe hearing more of people's stories in camp as well, it might fill some gaps for me or change my perspective. Everything I've been saying now has been based on what I have been told, but I've seen so many of you say you've done like a crazy number of playthroughs and are still in my videos seeing conversations you never came across before. So I do not doubt that I am not an exception, and in my next playthrough I may well come across things that I've not heard before, that could give me like a much better understanding or a different perspective on some characters. So we'll see, we'll go through it together. But for now, we're carrying on. I believe next on my list is John Marston. And yeah, we're now getting into the big ones, the top characters. So yeah, thank you again for listening to me ramble, for putting up with me talking so much. You guys are amazing. And yeah, take care of yourself, Outlaws, and I'll see you again next Sunday in a week's time. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye, everybody!